48-hour strike by nurses is set to cause severe disruption to the NHS over the early May bank holiday, involving A&E departments, intensive care units and cancer wards for the first time.
The Royal College of Nursing have warned of strikes until Christmas after rejecting that 5% pay rise and a one-off payment of more than £1,500.
In a moment, we'll speak to the head of the RCN, Pat Cullen. But first, we're going to speak to the NHS's largest union, Unison, whose members voted to accept the government's pay offer. And their General Secretary, Christina McAnea, joins us now. Good morning, Christine. Your members voted to accept the deal. Now, you were in those negotiations with the Secretary of State. And you've been in very many negotiations over the years. He obviously struck a hard bargain. And for your members, you know, their pay has not kept pace with inflation over the last year. But you recommended to your members that they should accept the deal, and your members have agreed with you on that. Was that because you thought that that was the best deal that you were going to be able to get for your members from the government in those negotiations?
Good morning. Yeah, it was definitely the best. We thought it was the best deal we were going to get for our members through the negotiations. We'd already taken strike action, so our members had already come out on strike, mainly ambulance workers, but also some hospitals across the country. And when we went into the negotiations, and I wasn't personally in the room, we have a lead negotiator called Sarah Gorton who was doing the negotiations. It was a lot of hard bargaining to get to shift them from where they had been. And quite frankly, I mean, a lot of this, where we are now and where the RCN find themselves now, I'm sure, is down to the fact that the government were so intransigent last year. Now, we told them from about July and August that the £1,400 that they'd given from the pay review body wasn't enough and they should negotiate with us. And right up until after Christmas, they were just refusing point blank to sit down and talk to us. So, we were involved in negotiations, the RCN were involved in negotiations, and like us, the RCN and a number of other unions decided that there was enough there to take back to members and say, this is the offer, this is the deal that we've struck. Do you think it's enough? Is there enough in it for you? And we gave them full facts about what it would mean, and the members, took a decision, they voted, and it was clear cut for us. So we had a 74% accept, which makes it a bit easier for us in that this is quite a decisive decision from Unison members.
Now, you have over 30,000 members in the NHS, some nurses, but a lot of them will be paramedics and orderlies and people who work supporting the work of nurses and doctors. And I'm sure that your average member will be paid less than a nurse or a doctor. Was it, do you think, part of your members' calculation that they couldn't afford to strike because they would lose pay when they were on strike? Or do you think that they agreed with you that this was the best deal that they could get?
So it's about 350,000 members we have in England. We've got over 400,000, nearer 450 across the UK. Well, it's a mixture of things. I mean, to get such a big turnout means, to get such a big yes vote means that it wasn't just the lower paid staff. I mean, we're a union that represents all grades across the NHS apart from doctors and dentists, but we will have very senior managers in Unison, senior clinical staff, senior nurses, senior paramedics, a whole range of other clinical staff. But we also represent the cleaning, catering and porters and the admin staff. And I'm sure that's a factor because, going on strike means you lose money and it's a big ask of people. But the fact is, they will have taken that decision. And I've been asked this a couple of times recently, Ed, about is it because your members are lower paid? We haven't done the calculation, I have to say. I don't know what the average, but we're the second biggest nursing union. So a large proportion of our members are also nurses and they will have taken this into account. But what I would say to that is, all of our members, no matter what job they do or what rate of pay they're on, are intelligent people. They can read the details of the offer and they will make up their mind based on that information. They've not been. We decided to give them full and frank information. We didn't sugarcoat it. We told them exactly what the offer was and what it would mean. And they for us, it's, as I say, relatively simple in that it's a large turnout in favour of accepting.
Just a very quick question, because we're about to talk to Pat Cullen. If Pat and the RCN now got an improved offer from the Health Secretary as a result of them rejecting the deal, how would you feel about that? I'd
be delighted, and we'd be, because you can't just pick off one bits of staff against another. So if they manage to get that, that would be great. But we'll just have to wait and see. This time last week, both Pat and I were recommending this offer to our members. Our members accepted it, Pat's didn't. But we'll still be working together to do the best we can for NHS workers.
Yeah. All right, Christine McAnea, thank you very much indeed. That's Christina is from Unison, as we just heard. Unison have voted to accept this offer. You recommended that your members, Pat Cullen, at the RCN, should also accept. They rejected your recommendation and they've rejected the offer. Now, I wonder whether the situation with Unison members accepting gives more power to the government, where they can say, well, that was the deal. There's no room for negotiation.
Well, first of all, I have the greatest respect for every member of nursing staff that I represent, and indeed those nurses that I don't represent. And I believe in them, absolutely believe in them. And they did not believe that this offer that the government put on the table was fair or reasonable. For them, it didn't pass the fairness test. And why did it not? Because the offer of what they considered to be a sweetener, or indeed what some of our members thought was quite a cruel thing to do, to say, we will give you a sweetener this year, but we'll take it off you again next year and have you back to square one. They felt that that did nothing to address the staffing problems that we've got within the NHS. And whilst it would have put a few extra pound in their pockets, and that just shows you the type of people these are, it was doing nothing to address the recruitment and retention issues within our health service.
And clearly that's the situation, because, you had this rejection from your members, but you had recommended that they accept. And I wonder whether that's because you realise that this is the best offer that the government's going to give. Your members say, please go back, get a better offer. But you clearly were in a position where you thought we're not going to get a better offer, even if you also agree with them that it's not fair and reasonable and is going to solve all the problems. And I just put it to you again, if you've got a union, Unison, which has said it's the best we're going to get, we'll just take it, are you in a stronger position now or actually a weaker position? Because when we hear that the strikes might continue until Christmas, patients will be losing heart. Although, to be fair, the Times poll today suggests that they're still on your side. But I wonder whether, as it drags out, that might lessen. Are you in a stronger or weaker position?
Well, look, let me just... First of all, I think it's important to give some reasons for recommending accept. And that was done by our governing body, which are the peers of those nurses that voted in this ballot. They are our elected members, but they're frontline nurses. And what they decided, there were two things. First thing being that they were not willing to gamble with the livelihoods of the people that they work with on night duty and day duty every day, who are really struggling with trying to pay their bills. And if they gambled with that, and then those nurses were not going to get that money because this government took it off the table, then that would be a problem for our elected members.
But are you...
And secondly, Suzanne, just let me say this one other thing. There were a number of other elements put on the table. One around moving to a position around safe staffing and government taking responsibility and a separate pay structure for nursing. And those were the parts of this deal that were very, very tempting for our nursing staff to take forward, because safe nurse staffing is so important to them.
But can you,
that's what they struggle with.
Can you get a better deal?
Yes, we will have to get a better deal. And what I would say to the government, if they're watching this morning, for goodness sake, this is not about point scoring. This is not about who can be the smartest person in the class. This is about trying to take the NHS back from the brink. That's what our nursing staff are trying to do. We need to fill the 47,000 vacant nursing posts. We won't do that unless we pay these nurses decently. But they need to leave on the table what this government put on last month. Don't take anything off and add to it. Treat these nurses fairly, value them, and let's move on from this. And then we won't have strikes to Christmas. But the nursing staff are saying, we will stand up for our patients. We will work night and day for our patients. We will lose pay and stand on picket lines for our patients. But you will have to pay us at the end of the day.
If you do manage to get a better deal, that deal presumably would cover Unison members as well, would it?
Absolutely.
Under the agenda. So you've got a situation in which one union has decided not to have any more strike action and therefore won't lose any pay. And the RCN nurses will continue striking and lose pay in order to get that better deal. Yes. Can you see that there's going to be there might be some bad blood then between
There's absolutely no bad blood between any of the unions. I have the greatest respect for Christina and my other colleagues. They're doing very hard jobs, trying to negotiate with a government who has allowed this health service to be run into the ground for 13 years. Now, look, we need to move on from this now. Yeah. And every penny that we can get on the table will be also available for our Unison representatives and our nurses are standing up for patients in England. They're standing up for this health service, which is in total crisis. And this government owes it now to every single 280,000 nurses that I represent. They owe it to every one of those nurses, not to push them onto picket lines again and pay them a decent wage.
Can you rule out a joint strike with the doctors?
Well, I've said yesterday, and I'm on record, doctors and nurses, as you know, work side by side on every single shift. They're there doing it again against all odds, even though this government has depleted them of a workforce, the same as they've done with nursing. What I've said is that at this point in time, we will certainly not be coordinating strikes, but we work very closely together.
Right.
So you're ruling out a coordinated strike?
We will not
support doctors, but you wouldn't strike at the same time?
I support them 100%, but we will not be coordinating strikes on the same days as we will be taking strike.
At any point this year?
Well, we have our mandate finishes at the end of this month, beginning of next month.
But if it's
we will
renewed,
then be balloting our members for a further 6 months.
But you wouldn't be balloting for joint strikes?
No, absolutely. We will.
So no joint strikes.
I can only ballot the nursing staff
that I
represent.
No joint strikes this year.
Well, we will not be coordinating strikes on the same days that we are taking strike.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Pat Cullen from the Royal College of Nursing, thanks very much indeed, and Christina McAnea as well from Unison. We will speak to the government because Gillian Keegan is going to be joining us on Good Morning Britain after 8 o'clock.